Hey everyone, this is DougUSMC here, putting together a video to show you all my movie room. First off, we're standing on the riser, kind of taking a peek around. We're going up to the stage wall right now. Up there in the top right, you can see one of the LED drivers. Coming back around through the door, spinning all the way around till we get to the actual drivers themselves. Don't make fun of my two little pieces of sheetrock. So what we're looking at here is a bank of 4 switches. Each switch controls a circuit. We'll see in the electrical panel a little bit, but I also dedicated a single breaker on the panel to each switch. So if we start left to right, taking a peek at this, the first thing we see on the left is the dimmer switch for my soffit LED eyeballs. When we get to it, you'll notice I just have screw-in CFLs right now. That's just because at 45 bucks a piece, times 13, I'm not screwing those up with dust. Next to it is an identical switch that controls LED light strips that run around the top of my soffit. For test purposes, I installed all the wiring and just cut like a little 6-inch length of the lighting strip to make sure that each connection works. The third switch there is a similar run, but that's going to be in the steps, kind of downlighting from within my riser steps. And the last one is different. That's just a switch, and that's for RGB lighting that will run behind each of the acoustical panels. So if we take a look around the room, if we pan with me here, you can see there's 3-4 lights in the soffit, couple over the stage, there's another 4 running down that wall, and if I turn all the way around, you can see a couple more in the soffit. There's my server rack opening and the back wall. So right there, we got 4 on each side for 8, 3 in the front, 3 in the back for 6. There's 14 LEDs. Eventually, currently again, they're CFLs, run off that first switch. Now that one's pretty simple, but the problem is it's actually a whole bunch of voltage for a single driver. So we're going to take a walk into the equipment room here. You see there's, I think I got enough power here. That would be 3 200 amp breakers and my commercial power. We do not run out of power in this house. That's the secret right there. That's the comms closet. You can't see that yet. So if we look up over here, I'm sure you all recognize this picture. From left to right, you have those riser steps. It's a little 20 amp Zurich right there. Next to it, you'll see there's a pair of crown splash is what I call them. And next to it is the panel RGBs. So the first thing I want to point out is these ceiling cans that run the soffit lights are just that. They're just cans. They're going to have screw-in LED gimbal lighting in them. Pick these things up just down at Home Depot, if I can grab one here. So these are a pretty simple deal here. If you look at the package, just your typical commercial electric 4-inch recessed LED trim, right? You screw in the bulb part into the ceiling, then you snap this in just like anyone. So those have nothing special about them other than the fact that, you know, they just have a single switch dedicated to them. So the reason I have 4 switches is so that I can use this bad boy here. This is the Lutron RA2 main repeater. So it's the brains of the whole operation. It can have 100 controllers wired into it. And by 100, there's 5 that come prepackaged, so you can have 95 more. If you include the 4 that I just showed you, that means I have 91 I can use in all my other rooms. This is the thing that you connect to with the software that allows you to set scenes and all that cool stuff like that. So we talked about the first one. That's not really that big a deal. I'm sure there aren't a lot of questions on it. The next switch, again, like I said, is my rope lights. So if we go up right now, and you can see I haven't actually finished rocking much of anything to include the soffit, but there'll be an LED run along the bottom. You can see I have a couple of little testers right in there. Oh, there's my drop for the projector too. They will be run inside crown with the intent of splashing up on the ceiling. So if you look at that, while I hit the switch here, and by switch I mean dimmer, you'll see when I hit the dimmers, they come on. They're too bright, it's blanking out the phone, so I can just dim them straight down. So one of the questions I've gotten already was, that's dimmed down to the minimum, which I believe is 5% on these things. Why do I have the dimmer in line from the power? Which is actually a pretty cool question. So if we go back into the equipment room back here and we take a look at it, and we looked, you'd see, you know, a dedicated circuit for each of these things, right? Now the power actually runs from that circuit all the way back around here over to that switch, right? I keep saying switch and I say dimmer, I apologize. But it runs from that dimmer up to these two. So that one coming in on the right there, that's white Romex, that's from the switch to the first one. You see two black wires run on off there. They're typical low voltage, exterior grade copper wiring, right? And you can see a jumper over to the second one and one running off that. So the reason that's happening is because it's about 60-ish watts to power a 16-foot run of my LED strips. So basically I need a little under 60 for each. So that 150 can only handle 2. That one can handle 1. That's 3. And if you look all the way in the front of the room there, you'll see another 150, and that's running 2. So if we look around the room on the ceiling, you see 1, 2. There's 2 up in that front corner there, and 5. Again, these are just little test pieces that I hung to make sure everything works. So to finish the answer that I posted to Beast, those 3 runs just really just run right through. They pop out of this box that I'm going to hide up behind the crown into a piece of wire. The wire comes down, and one of the things I like about FlexFire is if you look real close there, you can see, if this ever focuses, they have snap, click, lock from the wire onto the LED strip. It's just, you know, a little 6-inch run right there. The thing I dig is that little piece right there was about $1. If you get into custom ordering on these things, you can pay like, you know, $40 for soldering per, which there's no way in hell I'm doing that. It doesn't fit my budget. I can't build it as cool as Beast. Sorry, I don't mean to tease. Love you, bro. So that is really the whole run. It's from the electrical panel to the switch, from the switch, piece of Romex to each of those 3 drivers, from each of those 3 drivers, just a little bit of typical exterior wiring to that, and that's it. When I actually get the soffit rocked and I get the crown up, I'll take off those little pieces and I'll just run a strip all the way around the soffit, all the way around. So that is all there is to setting up the single color. Everybody calls them white. They're actually technically in industry jargon. I'm cool now. SC or single color. That's all that happens to that. So if I go back here, I can hit the dimmer again and turn them off. Now the reason I dig these Lutrons is, again, that's RF. You look again in the server rack mounted to the side there, that controller can be accessed anywhere through the house from anything that's network accessible. That's actually dedicated Cat 5 running to it, haphazardly for the purpose of this video. My phone can control that switch. And more importantly, iRule has a plug-in so you can use their app to control the switch. So if you look at that one, it's very similar. It worked, so why fix something that ain't broke? If you follow that third switch to this little bundle of wire that I have here, that's about 12 feet of coiled up cabling. That wire is eventually going to run across the floor here. We're standing on my riser technically in the future. All the way over to here where I have a step. So there'll be one there, and I'll just jump off it, just like you saw from the others, onto the next one and the next one until I do them all. So that is exactly the same. The only difference being, since I plan to have 6 inches in each box for each light with a total of 10, I have a much smaller dedicated driver to it. That's another Zurich. If you look real close, you can see the part number there. It's just 20 watt. So what does that tell us? Well, I did the exact same thing. I ran a dedicated circuit from the electrical box to this one here. I ran from there up to that driver unit, and from there I just ran some exterior wiring. That's it. So the RGB is the trickier one, okay? You'll notice it's the last control there on the right, and it's a switch, not a dimmer. You can tell it looks different than the other 3. That's because you cannot dim RGB in line, because it'll just screw with the frequency and the colors won't work right. So if you look around my room, you can see on the tops here, there's also more wiring sticking out. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, same on the other wall, a couple on the back. Those are RGBs. They're actually on the outside edge of each of my what'll be the acoustical paneling. So they'll just kind of come out and splash a little off to the side, very similar to what Beast is doing, although I'm not as cool. I didn't get all the high speed what he got for dimming. There's also a couple in the back you can see, because this access door will actually have a panel over it on a hinge. So if we look at that, it's just an on-off switch. It's wired a little differently because I need to be able to dim and control colors. So if we look up at the panel RGBs, you see the Romex coming in, And the first thing it goes to is actually the driver there. That's Romex coming straight from the switch to the driver, which is a little different. It's a different manufacturer. And then from there, it'll feed power over across the top, you can see, to the controller. That is the RGB receiver. Running off the RGB receiver, you see 2 runs of dedicated low voltage wiring. That's just 5-strand 14 gauge. Okay, so there's 2. One runs to one of the lights in the back of the room and left, and the other one runs to one of the things in the back of the room and the right. So those are actually not controlled on the same circuit, the same way, out of my main repeater. They're instead controlled by this, which I'm trying to bring into focus slowly. This is an RGB controller. This is also RF to that receiver. So my plan is to use a standard gateway from Global Connect with a little blaster taped right to the side of that receiver. So you'll see, if I can get these two in the picture at the same time, there's multiple zones on this. This is made for 10 different zones. So if it's on zone 1, which this is, and I hit power, which I did, you can see them come up blue. All the ones in the room came up simultaneously blue. If I just hit a little bit over here, it'll change them all to green. We can get some red. And we go back to blue. Nothing up my sleeve. Here's some, I don't know, what color is that? Yellowish, purplish? I don't know. It also has its own brightness and dimmer capability on it. You can hear the actual control unit making sounds in the back. So it just works a little differently. To answer the question that was posted by, I think, Waterboy, these run different just because they have to. You can't actually control, I'm moving back in here, you cannot control this Meanwell driver the same way you do those Zurichs, because those Zurichs are just power, more or less, and that just dims your lights. The Meanwell itself is actually more and less power, and what combination of frequencies are you sending with that power to get those RGB lights to change to the colors you want. So I think that's just about everything. The only thing I can't show you right now is the eyeballs, because I didn't actually screw one in and now they're blazing hot. So you missed out on that. Again, this is DougUSMC. I think it was a little involved, but I tend to ramble when I get excited about this stuff, like we all do. I will try to get this up on Instagram and shoot any questions. Thanks.